Hey there, everyone. I just wanted to put together a video response. I'm trying to make this, well, try not to make it too long. It's going to be one of the longer videos that I make. But I just wanted to echo what it is that Joe has brought in the updates around the Earth Regenerators first grade transition. And I think that, there was a lot of information that he put out, and I'm very excited about it, and I hope you all are as well. But I think that through echoing Joe's words from my perspective, it may bring a little bit more clarity for some people. I've been doing some research on Commonland as well, and really excited about what I'm seeing. I think that every opportunity that we can create to reflect together will bring more coherence and allow us to collectively respond more effectively. So I also want to share a little bit about the Bioregional Catalysts and the Bioregional Weavers Guild. I feel like this was a bit of a call to clarity, and also share a bit about what I anticipate in terms of how this may affect us. And so to summarize the first grade transition, I'm going to go into a couple things that Joe has mentioned and just sort of set context a little bit first. All right, so the first thing that has occurred, that's developed, that's evolved to allow this transition to happen, and I'll speak a little bit more about what exactly this transition is here in a moment if you're not aware, if you haven't seen any of Joe's updates. But as a community, Earth Regenerators, we have evolved. We have developed a foundation of sorts to continue pursuing our purpose, and that purpose being to nurture the birth of regenerative bioregions. And as Joe said on the back of his book, The Design Pathway for Regenerating Earth, a planet-wide network of learning ecosystems is needed that can hold the complexity of birthing these regenerative bioregions during and after the rest of the collapse that we were all born into. So the foundation that we've created allows us to continue to develop capacities that serve that purpose. And Joe named specifically three groups as the core to that, and that is the ER Fund Governance Group, the Project Incubator, and the Bioregional Catalysts. So one of our tasks moving forward is to find ways of weaving those groups together into greater coherence, as well as all the other pro-social groups that have formed within Earth Regenerators. And then that brings me to the second thing that has kicked off this transition, and that is all that is developing in Barichara. And Joe's been there for 2.5 years. He's been the initial crazy catalyst that has been pulling grass in the bioparque and bringing a unique perspective with his background in earth system science and the understanding of cloud formation, and speaking for a part of the climate, a part of the landscape, and proving himself to be a devoted and community-oriented person, and bringing others around him and forming a committed team of volunteers for now that have also undergone a huge effort to secure a site for an ecoversity, Las Albercas, which is making progress once again. So there are a group of people and a location, and a vision for the landscape is coming into form, as well as the people to represent that landscape. And so I sense, even from Colorado, an increasing energy down in Barichara. I can't wait to experience it for myself. And it is that context that then Willem Verwerda of Commonland dropped into, making a visit to Barichara, where he had backpacked in the past and sort of fell in love with the place. And on a different vacation a week or two ago, he met up with Joe, and they explored the territory. Joe showed him around, and that has opened up a whole new world of possibility for what can happen in Barichara, potential or a partnership that is moving forward with Commonland. And so Commonland has been developing an integrative landscape management plan, working with huge landscapes since 2012. And over that period of time, they've gained some invaluable insights into how bioregional development and investment can occur. I'll say in the Bioregional Catalysts, we've really developed a culture that appreciates and values grassroots community development of cultures emerging from place. And I will be honest, when I first watched the initial update. I had a bit of trepidation. I was having a hard time seeing through all the structure of Commonland's models. I was just a little bit concerned about there not being, the requisite room for more organic community development. But the more I came to understand specifically the 5 process elements of their integrative landscape model, as well as the central role of Theory U and the Presencing Institute, which is very interesting and worth looking up. I might share a bit more about that in a later update, but it's all about facilitation of emergence. And I began to see that overall this model is actually quite grassroots. They work with Theory U and the Presencing Institute in everything that they do. Everything that they do is about the facilitation of emergence, convening of stakeholders, mapping out of vision, empowering sovereignty for communities to guide their own development. And so much of what they do parallels what we've been talking about in the Bioregional Catalysts. Their concept of building the foundation for a regenerative economy is first forming a core team that holds the process. And that is uncannily similar to the role of the bioregional weaver that we've been discussing. So one of the coherent patterns of bioregional development indeed. And much of the 5 elements of their process are closely related to conversations we've had around like the Stone Soup Gathering in the Cowichan Valley, as well as much of what we've discussed around the story of place. It turns out the story of place is another, I think that we all kind of anticipated that, but it is another coherent pattern of bioregional development. And so there's a huge potential for alignment. Obviously, they're much more established. They're doing some big things, and we are sort of in our incubatory stage, if that's a word. But I'm just so excited. The Commonland is now associated with Joe, and they bring a decade of experience with really highly capable people working with a growing list of landscapes, building regenerative capacities at huge scales. So I'm just clearly very excited about all of this. One thing that they can demonstrate is the level of investment and time frame necessary to birth truly regenerative economies. It's a lot. It's 20 years, and it's about, they estimate $500K per year to fund a core team, with more investment required to support the regenerative projects that serve as the foundation for the commons and for the eventual rooting of a regenerative economy. And so it's a massive amount of complexity for the core team to hold and to navigate. And just think about the community dialogue, decision-making processes, hosting of events, gatherings, workshops, the incubating and nurturing of projects and people, amongst all the other things that the core team would hold over time and facilitate over time. And that's the transition that's happening. Joe is redirecting his focus to all of that complexity, which is absolutely required. And so he's no longer going to be serving as the leader of Earth Regenerators, rather more an active member. And so that is the great transition, the first great transition. It is him sort of touring away, and the Earth Regenerators sort of stepping forward as a collective to pick up his slack and eventually to increase our capacity more than we could with a single leader anyways. And Joe has tasked the Earth Regenerators, and namely those 3 groups that I mentioned before, the Earth Regenerators Fund Governance Group, the Project Incubator, and the Bioregional Catalysts, with growing in parallel alongside Barichara. And what a great opportunity this is for an ecosystem that's aiming to learn about bioregional regeneration, to be able to experience all of this emergence with them as they live it out. From being the first crazy catalyst who has a dream for landscape scale regeneration, to forming a core team of skilled and dedicated weavers, to holding the space for a network of regenerative projects to form that are also forming a community commons, to facilitating bioregional learning processes, and then all of that amounting to the birth of a genuine regenerative economy. And so how can we support Barichara now and the core team now? They're trying to raise funds in order to enable all of this to happen. And I imagine if we were to create infrastructure processes and strategies to help them in their funding. If we were to partner with the fund governance group, for instance, or the project incubator on that, then we would learn so much about how to do that for bioregions that we're supporting down the road. We would be building a lot of the scaffolding to continue doing this work. And so that is what a lot of this is about, is learning and building the scaffolding to replicate a lot of what's happening in Barichara. And I do think that starts with weaving more intentionally with the project incubator and the Earth Regenerators Fund governance group, and exploring what this Earth Regenerators Governance Council that Joe has named might be. And the Bioregional Catalysts have a couple of different meetings, conversational spaces that we can begin to explore this. In the near term, we can do this as soon as a couple this week. We have our Friday updates and exploratory sessions, and then we have our campfires on Thursday evenings and Sunday mornings, at least in North America. And the campfires have a very open conversational dynamic, so that'll be a great place for this. But if you're interested in exploring this conversation more, please check out the Bioregional Catalyst and our events page to find those. And let's knock our heads together. And I'll go ahead and take the opportunity, since this video is already long, to say just a little bit more about the Bioregional Catalyst, the Bioregional Weavers Guild, and where I think we're headed. And so first off, the difference between the two: the Bioregional Catalyst is a conversational space, is a group, is a pod that I formed along with a small group of dedicated people about a year ago. And we just started to explore topics of bioregionalism and just tried to learn more about it and tried to see it through our places. And we moved the campfires there, and with the intent of focusing the campfire conversations into a more bioregional context. But I also wanted to explore this concept of the bioregional weaver. And I wanted to find ways to support weavers and to support groups on the ground that were forming that had the aspiration of territorial scale regeneration. But I figured that was going to be a project that I was going to be self-directing in some sense, and I didn't want to occupy the entire bioregional niche within Earth Regenerators. And I wanted to create the space for other bioregional projects to come in and find a home. So the Bioregional Catalysts is sort of the open space, is where we can self-organize, where we host things like the update and exploratory session, where the OSA Peninsula Interface Pod exists, where the Collaborative Action Inquiry Pod exists, and where our bioregional campfires exist. And then the Bioregional Weavers Guild is a place that I am hosting meetings like bioregional group incubators. I facilitate gatherings where people share their story of place. We've done bioregional mapping exercises in the past. And so there's a subtle distinction, and they may end up getting woven back together, because I don't intend to be the leader of this thing forever, but I do think that it will require much like the Commonland integrative landscape model, a core team that holds the process. And I do believe that we will eventually need a core team of skilled and dedicated people to build out the platform of the Bioregional Weavers Guild, which I think would include salaried positions. But that's a conversation that maybe we will hold down the road. But I just wanted to provide a little bit more context into what all that looks like. And several people have asked recently, so it seems like there was a call for clarity there as well. And so what we're doing just in general in the Bioregional Catalyst and the Bioregional Weavers Guild is we're focused on things like weaving of human relationships, re-inhabitation, the playful mapping of territories, the telling of story of place, and forming a support structure overall that's very approachable for anyone, for the individual crazy dreamer, aspiring catalyst, or long established groups. How can we provide a rich connecting ecosystem where everyone will find value and belonging? And so, like I mentioned before, we've been exploring a few different kinds of gatherings, and we're always looking for more. And And so I'm really interested. I see all these opportunities with Commonland and all this inspiration. And as I mentioned before, there are uncanny similarities between the role of the bioregional weaver that we've been exploring and the people that make up the core team that serve as the foundation for bioregional regeneration. And so I think that is going to guide us. That's giving us a bit of clarity. And maybe the Bioregional Weavers Guild will apply some of its energies towards the coherent patterns involved in forming core teams. And so that's something that I'm going to be exploring in the coming weeks and months. And I also intend to go to Barichara as soon as I'm feeling strong enough. And for those of you who don't know what I mean, I've been navigating an autoimmune disease that has presented a lot of challenges for me lately. It's slowed me down quite a lot. It's also teaching me some things about regeneration, so there is a silver lining. And if I can go to Barichara, I feel like I can learn a lot about how core teams form, and I can bring that back to the Bioregional Weavers Guild. So maybe that's enough to share in this update. I just want to thank the Bioregional Catalysts and particularly the regulars for all the contributions that they've made and all that they've carried over the past several months and year. And I also want to thank Joe for the inspirational capital that he's created, and hopefully we can provide some inspirational returns. And so thank you very much for listening if you made this far. I'll see you all soon.